I started as an operator back in the late 90s, in December of 96. And I'll tell you that what I was doing before that, I was selling leather jackets. Now, we're in South Florida. Now, selling leather jackets at the mall in South Florida, you figure it's probably not a very successful trade, but we did pretty darn well selling leather jackets in South Florida. But I worked at a place called Sawgrass Mall. And for those of us that know South Florida, know it's a notorious shopping area, but it's pretty distant from where I lived. My mother to this day lives literally a few blocks away from our headquarters. She happened to be in driving around the area one day, and she noticed a now hiring sign. It would used to be Global Response. And she said, well, that's down the street. Maybe you should check it out, instead of commuting from, selling leather jackets at Sawgrass and going back to, at the time, to college, where I was going to a local community college here. And I said, sure. I went in, I applied. I was interviewed by Elizabeth Schuster. I completed training, and actually one of my first team lead is Cynthia Williams, who's still with the business now. She herself is 30 years with the business, but she was my first team lead. And my origins began there. I was an operator for several years. I met a lot of great friends and met my wife, in our operations. Little by little, I started, building not just relationships, but a skill set. We operated the business completely different back then. It was a volume world then, by just seeing how much you can do as an individual, how many calls you could answer, at any given moment. We used to have 6 lines on our switchboard, and some of the systems we still use will still have that capability, but it's not encouraged now to stack 6 calls on the line. I started spending a lot of time with folks in our technical team who were there sometimes late at night. Obviously running a 24/7 business, when you have to keep continuity flowing. You have to keep the systems up and running because the service is always running. But any system's going to need maintenance, so they would use the night hours to do their maintenance windows. And as a night operator, I would see them coming in, and every once in a while I'd take a break and follow them into their room and ask questions about what they were doing. And I piqued an interest into the technical side of what they were doing, and that sort of sparked a new interest in mine. And I grew some responsibilities as what we used to call a systems admin, basically administering the systems that we were using to service our clients. So I got to know the back end of the systems fairly well. And just one set of curiosity after the other started kicking in. My mindset started to change. Maybe I thought at some point that I would seek a different career path to try to, go beyond some of the responsibilities I had. And I remember sitting in an office with Michael Schuster. At the time, I was another operator on the floor, but here it is, an executive in a company that is able to, give me an audience and sit down and listen to me about what I was going through and give me some guidance and feedback, and just listen. And, I respected that. I held that very fondly. And so even though I did, make some life changes at the time, I always kept the answering service close by. I went into more of a part-time role for a short period of time. And then I realized these other things that I was doing, that there was a home here, there was a connection. I built a really great connection with the people, which was always really the core of it. No, not just the curiosity and the aspiration to want to do different things and learn different things, but you were doing it around people that you really enjoyed being around. At one point, there was an opening for an evening supervisor. I applied. I interviewed with Joan Harrell, our director of operations at the time. And at the end of that interview, the following day, it was, Joan reached out to me and told me that I was going to she was, welcoming me to be her leader in charge of the night crew. And so came this, next phase of my life into leadership. The curiosity that was, systems and how things worked, and taking care of clients and understanding, the operating element of it, but the peak and interest of the technology, it started now sort of morphing into, having a responsibility now with people. So now I had this my ascension into responsibilities and leadership, but just still this itch that I had with the technical team. The technical team I continue to be very close with. And though I had some experience with the administration of the system, there was just something else that they were doing. They were pushing limits. They were writing code. They were looking into databases. They were doing things that even when you administer the front end of an application, you're not around. I sat with Michael one day, and he listens to me, and after a while he says, we'll find a way to get some level of responsibility here. He says, but he says, you sure you don't want to pursue a career in leadership? I said, Mike, I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I'm learning a lot here. I was young. I was put in these unique situations with team members as I was learning, and they were people that were my peers just a few weeks prior to that. I said I was put into some lessons that were really great lessons. I said, but I really think that this is for me. And he said, I'll tell you what. He says, we'll integrate some of the technical responsibilities and make you sort of like the first layer of tech support for the answering service. He says, get to understand the back ends like you're doing with them already. He's like, appreciate that, that's good. And he says, and if you can't solve a problem within 15 minutes, you escalate up to the other technical resources. He says, but you still have to, run one of the teams in the operations. And, we started, really challenging ourselves and doing some unique things in the business. The way we were using at the time those systems that were really legacy platforms in the answering service world, we were pushing the envelope in some of those systems beyond what other locations were doing with them. And that was cool. At the same time, we were growing our teams within the answering service. I was starting to grow a team of ultimately team leads that would report to me. And it's been so much fun the past few years being able to give back to the business from a different perspective as well, right? I mean, I've always wanted to do things for the success of the business, personal growth and success, and then eventually, obviously, wanting my own tree. But now it's, I saw what this family did to sustain their family legacy and family business and the investment they made, and I wanted to make sure that we continued to do everything to continue to help these businesses thrive.